It's 8:45 on Wednesday, the 21st of September, 2016, and this is the Ask TCW podcast live. Right, you won't be able to hear the theme tune now, so don't worry.
Just can't put it in.
Okay, we're live in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Ask TCW podcast. My name is Jono, Bullard, and with me tonight to answer the questions that you've been sending in to us all day are Andy Haywood.
Good evening.
And our special guest from Panthers Hockey Live on Twitter, Antoine Marie-Jeanne.
Good evening, both. Good evening, listeners.
Great to have you along, mate, and thanks for stepping in this evening.
Absolutely no problem whatsoever. It's a pleasure.
Great stuff. If you want to get in touch with us during the show, you can do. It's on Twitter at CatsWhiskersTV and use the hashtag AskTCW. Okay, and that's if you want to send a question to us or if you would like to comment on any of the discussions that we have on the questions this evening. Right, we shall crack on straight away. And I'm going to start with a question from Chris Lovell, who is a Giants fan. He sent us this one on Twitter. He says, are doubled up Challenge Cup and League games fair, given it means over the season some teams will have played less games? And you kick us off with that one.
Yeah, but didn't they play a triple up game a couple of seasons ago against Hull?
I believe that, yeah, they played a two-leg game, but they only played it over a single leg, I think. But
anyway, beside the by. I'm not keen on the double up games. I think purely from the standpoint that one team can have a bad game on any night, and if that just so happens to be a double up game, you lost 2 games for the price of 1, basically. So you're getting punished twice. I kind of understand why they do it, the big arena teams, because of lack of ice availability, but I don't think it does the group stages of the Cup any favours whatsoever, to be honest.
Yeah, Andy?
Well, interestingly, I've never thought of it like Chris has asked. I've often said that I don't agree with it in the sense that, for a Challenge Cup game, where realistically you're going to go through, or 80% of the teams are going to go through to the next round, there's less pressure to win games. So if it's if you're a goal up or a goal down, however it works, do you pull the goalie? Do you make an emphasis on getting it, winning the game? And things like that, because it's a really odd scenario, but it's a genuinely really good question to sort of say about the fact that ultimately there's going to be some teams that will be playing 2, 3, maybe 4 games more than some of the others, which when it boils down to it, they're probably evened out by some of the other things, perhaps. If you take us, I mean, we always double up games at some point, but obviously this season we've got European games to put into the calendar, so ultimately in our sort of example we're probably going to have a similar amount of games, but the doubling up does sort of water down the cup games, and it does sort of make decisions slightly harder regarding what you do on the night regarding the result, and I can, like Anne says, I can see why they do it. It's always funny how our games against Manchester and Cardiff are on the season ticket, and the Sheffield and Coventry ones aren't, they?
Yeah, always a strange one, that, isn't it? But I mean, I must admit, I'm not a fan. Never been a fan of the doubling up, because I think it devalues the competition, and as we've gone on to win it so many times, I think it can often take away from what is it's a great achievement to win the Challenge Cup. But I am not a fan at all of doubling up games. I think if they can find the ice time, just play them as separate games rather than doubling up because now nobody else doubles up. We're the only team that does it, and I think that then puts a bit of a question mark over us. But let's throw it out to you. What do you think? To those listening, get in touch with us. #AskTCW at CatsWhiskersTV on Twitter. Okay, thanks for your question, Chris. We shall move on to another question. That comes from Max Artis, who sent it on Facebook. This is one that we carried over from last week's show, and he says, could and should the league host an all-star event? Andy, you kick us off.
Could they? Yes. Should they? No. They've tried it, a few times before, and ultimately, it's not really supported. There's not enough people to warrant it, and we have that age-old thing that you even get in the NHL All-Star games, where all of a sudden players that have picked up mysterious injuries because the league's too important.
Didn't Ovechkin miss this year?
Yeah, Crosby's not done one for years. I don't think Taves played this year, and I think Taves got fined as well for not turning up. But ultimately,
I believe Ovechkin also had to sit out a game afterwards because he didn't play in the All-Star game. But sorry.
I just think, obviously for us, I think the only way it could possibly work would be if it was some sort of end of season jamboree instead of a third and fourth place playoff. But are they going to be all-stars, and is anyone actually going to want to play it, is another question. So personally, could they? Yes, I think they could. But ultimately, I think they've tried it and it's failed too many times, and I don't think there's enough interest.
Okay. Anne?
Andy's basically taken my answer. It would be a great thing for the league to put on, I think, but I don't think there'd be much buy-in. I think you'd be stuck playing it in Coventry in front of 200 fans. If it was a standalone game, like Andy's mentioned, replace a third, fourth place playoff, but then you've only got 6 teams of players to choose from. The other thing I thought of was, what about if you have have it on the Challenge Cup final day? So you have the Challenge Cup final later on in the afternoon and have the All-Star game as like a dinner time face-off. But again, then you've only got 8 possible teams out of the 10 we've got in the league at the moment. So I like the sentiment behind it, but I'm not a fan of the idea, and I don't think it'll be able to get much buy-in, I'm afraid.
I mean, I must admit, I think if there was some sort of gimmick like what the NHL did this season with the 3-on-3, and maybe split the teams up, I think that may create a bit of interest. But to be honest, I think you're right. I think it's not going to attract a crowd. I mean, say it was held at somewhere like the NLC or Sheffield Arena. Do you really want to see like just 1,000 people rattling around there? Probably be good at somewhere like Ice Sheffield, where I believe it's been held before.
It's been held at Ice Sheffield before. It was once held at the arena.
I think that was ISL.
ISL. I think it was GB versus the ISL All Stars. I think it was.
Yeah,
I seem to remember. I can only remember that PC Druin was playing, so I presume it must have been the ISL era because he wasn't here long enough.
Yes,
the time he came back.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice. It's one of those things that I suppose is nice to have, but would it really be supported? And the thing is, would the players really be that bothered? I suppose is the other question. But yeah, thanks for your question, Matt. Ant, would you like to ask one of your questions?
One of the two.
One of the two. Yeah.
I sent. I'll do last week's one first. So go on, guys. In your opinions, what should the Panthers organisation be doing that they're currently not? And in brackets, aside from webcasts.
Go on, you go first, Andy.
Win the league. There you go. That's my answer. Win the league more. I mean, ultimately, one of the things that we do really badly is the media, whether that be webcasts or Twitter. We're always late to the party, it seems. And, it'd be nice to, just for once, perhaps, if we could be, proactive in that sort of area. But ultimately, the main aim is to win the league. So the fact we've only done it once in the 16 years I've been going, and then obviously even longer for everybody else that's been going, just win Matt a few more times. That'd be good.
Would be nice. What should they be doing that they're currently not? I think, it's one that I'll always bang on about, but I think the engagement with the common and garden Panthers fan is pretty poor from the organisation, to be honest. There's not the engagement. I think it's getting slightly better. I think Callum is at least trying to get some more engagement through social media. There was a quiz on today and that sort of thing, but there really does need to be a feeling that you are valued as a fan, and I think it feels that they don't value us as fans at the moment. And what could they do to change that? I'm not so sure, but it just feels like we are cash cows at the moment, and we're not there. They don't appreciate us, I suppose. So that would be what I would say. Just engage your fans a bit more. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, more or less.
What about you?
Yeah, mine's very similar to both of yours, funny enough. And I thought Andy was over my shoulder for 1 second because I thought he was reading my answer word for word. But no, I just want the Panthers to be a bit less of a closed shop. For a club the size of ours, the fan base that we've got a wealthy backer. I would assume the club generates plenty of money, but we just seem to be playing catch up all the time. We never seem to take the lead in anything, and that does disappoint me a little bit. But what I was thinking, just listening to both of your answers, is: are we just becoming grumpy old men? Are the Panthers more bothered about the newer, younger fan, and they're not so bothered about us that have been going 5, 10, 15 years, however long you've been going, Jono?
Long time.
I don't know.
You know what? That's a good point. Are they? Because you do see around the arena a lot more new faces, which is great. It's great that we are attracting people or new people all the time. But you do seem to see less and less of those fans who you've seen all the time. You don't see them as much anymore. And I think, by all means attract the newer fan, but also look after your core fan base as well. Because they're the people who will bring in other people naturally as well, without the need for marketing. Of course, you're going to need marketing and that sort of thing. The club are going to keep needing to bring people in, but look after your core fans, because they can be your best friends.
And to be fair as well, a lot of them, to a point, I include myself in it, because the first few years I came to, we were poor. We never challenged in anything. We never won anything. And obviously for someone like yourself, John, who's been going even longer, you've been there through the really bad times,
like
through thick and thick and properly thin.
Where it's like a trophy every 6 or 7 seasons,
as opposed to winning a trophy one season and it being considered awful.
Yeah, this now is like manna from heaven, to be perfectly honest. For someone like me, and a lot of people who've been going a long time, I remember we won the Benson Hedges Cup in 1998, and then we didn't win another trophy until the Challenge Cup in 2004. So that was 6, 7 seasons without winning a thing. And you sort of say that to people who haven't been going as long, and they look at you as if to say, "Really? What are you talking about?" Because now, we're winning 1, 2, sometimes 3 trophies a season, and this, for someone who's been going as long as I have, it's great to see. It's great to see. It's so good to keep winning things all the time, because this is. I feel this is the payback for all those years of not winning anything. This is now the great time. So sometimes it does feel a bit, I don't know, moot being able to sort of complaining about things, but I suppose I am just becoming a grumpy old man in my old age. Maybe you're right, Ant. I think. Shall we move on to another one?
Fair enough.
a question that relates to Sunday's game in Sheffield, and it just simply says, what went wrong in Sheffield? Fatigue, lack of physical appearance, and that comes from Sam Holmes on Facebook. So, Andy, what do you reckon?
Well, I think I don't think the first two Sheffield goals would have helped because they came so close together. I mean, there was seconds between them. Am I right?
7 seconds, yeah.
7 seconds, yeah. I don't think that helps. Any game where you concede 2 goals so quickly, it changes the 1 goal changes the momentum, but obviously 2 goals like that just absolutely snowballs the momentum, and obviously I don't think that helps. I think ultimately we're still really young into the season. We're still learning systems, getting to know each other and things like that. So I'd like to think that there's a bit of sort of match sharpness wasn't quite there. But ultimately, conceding 7 goals, you're never going to win a game. Conceding 5 goals, you're not often going to win a game. But obviously, Sheffield managed to score the 7. But it sounds like it was just one of them games, to be honest. From what I saw on the highlights and from what I read, it just sounded like one of them games where, every defenseman probably hated every second of it, but the forwards from both teams thoroughly enjoyed it.
And
yeah, again, I agree with Andy. It's getting a bit boring and repetitive now. I mean, we were 3 players down. So if obviously McGrattan wasn't there because he's not arrived yet, but Schultz wasn't playing, and I believe Lee was injured as well. And I think, to be honest, I think the team are also still learning how Passel, how they play his game. That's only his 3rd game, I think. A proper game for us. So, plus we're coming off playing a team who's coming off a massive win, their CHL win, so their confidence is right up there. I don't know. I'd be more worried if we lost Saturday 7-5, to be honest.
Okay, I think it's unfair to say fatigue, because we made it 4-4 early in the 3rd. Lack of physical, no, not really. There was the one fight between Lawrence and DBM, which I think was a bit of payback for a check that Lawrence threw earlier in the game. But no, I think it was just a case that their offence, which is extremely good, was just on fire. And our defence just wasn't at the races that night, and I think that's the reason why we failed to win in Sheffield. To be honest, like you say, I just hope it's very, very different come Saturday. Okay, moving on to another question. It comes from Martin Horner on Facebook, and I suppose it relates to the lack of physical appearance part of Sam's question, which is, even with Brian McGrattan hopefully making his debut on Saturday, do you think we lack size and physical presence? Personally, I do. If we lost McGrattan to injuries or suspension, we will struggle in that area. Andy, I know this is a sort of particular topic of interest for you, so you start us off.
Yeah, I don't think it's the physicalness. I think it's the energy. We've had players before that, they're not fighters and they're not overly physical, but players like, in that sense, but players like Matthew Myers and Brandon Benedict, you knew they were going to chase hard, skate hard, and finish their hits. And obviously then you couple that on the back of last season with Cam. But ultimately last year, we weren't particularly big, I don't think. And obviously, I agree if McGrattan goes for whatever reason, whether it be suspension, injury, or I don't know, an NHL call up or anything like that, then yeah, we look light. But ultimately, I'd like to think if it was for any length of time, we'd be looking at replacements. But obviously, then the short term, it does become a bit of an issue. But you can say it every season, unless you've got a stacked team, you're always going to look lighter if your biggest guy is not on the ice.
Okay, Ant, what's your feelings on that question?
I think it's a bit too soon to tell, to be honest. I don't think Jeff Brown's going to be shying away from anything. And obviously, I wouldn't want Robert Farmer in, but he likes to get involved. I think I would have liked somebody with a bit of meanness, if you like, at the back. But yeah, I think for me, the jury's out at the moment. We'll see what happens on when Big Ern gets here.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, because we've got players who certainly won't back down from an altercation, but have we got players who will actually actively go looking for it? I think apart from McGrattan, probably not. But I think it's fair to say, like you have, and just let's see how it goes. Let's see how McGrattan settles in over the next, say, month to 6 weeks, and then we can reassess that question again then. Okay, moving on to the next one. It's from Sam, by the way. And he says, do you think now Panthers are using Warrior for jerseys that we may see seasonal jerseys, sort of Halloween, Christmas, etc.?
I hope not. I don't mind a special charity jersey, for instance. Like we've done the odd Christmases that those jerseys have been raffled off for charity and what have you. But I really hope we don't go down the line of Halloween or, for God's sake, Valentine's Day. Maggie, I don't think we've played in pink yet, have we? I think we've crossed every other colour off. I'd quite like us to do charity-specific jerseys. Like you get obviously at the All-Stars, you've got the hero jerseys, something along those lines. But yeah, I hope they don't bring out just every odds and sods, and I don't like it at all.
No. Okay, Andy?
Oh yeah, I love a nice pumpkin shirt. There's nothing better.
Well, you did buy one of the green jerseys. It does have to be.
I did buy a green jersey. You're right. The green ones were awesome, and we won the league that year. So,
did you buy a brown jersey as well?
I didn't buy a brown jersey. I didn't mind them. Don't get me wrong. I didn't particularly like them, but I didn't hate them like pretty much everybody did. No, I think as far as these things go, I agree with Ant. It's a case of I don't mind the one-offs. Some of the one-offs have been really nice. Some of them haven't. And I actually think Ant's made a really good point with regarding the All-Star games. It would be nice to do something like that, where every season we pick a charity, that we raise money for. It would be quite nice if perhaps that special one-off shirt was not just auctioned or raffled off for that cause, but perhaps if it was sort of designed with that cause in mind. That's a really good idea, I think. But, no, as far as Halloween, Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas jerseys go, not for me, thanks.
Yeah, not for me either. But for the reason being that I feel a game-worn jersey should be something special. It should be something unique and something that, that has some sort of significance and it has some sort of, they're not anymore, because there's so many that they've almost lost their specialness almost. It's as if they don't mean anything anymore because there's so many about. There was a time when having a game worn jersey was something to be revered, and now it's not so much, which is a bit of a shame, because I've got two game-worn shirts. One's a Tom Norton one from the Grand Slam season, and then the other is a David Beauregard one from, I think it was his last season. And that one will always be very, very special to me. And I suppose it's how special it is to the person who buys it. But I just think that they're losing their rarity value somewhat, and I think that's a great shame, because we've seen that they can raise great deals of money, especially for charity. I think the Panthers one last year with the special anniversary shirts raised something in the region of £15,000 for charity, which is an incredible amount. So they can do a lot of good, but I think that they are. I just think that they're losing their sort of rareness.
And with that, unless they're special jerseys, I don't think you're going to make as much money because they're not. It's sort of we've hit a bit of a peak in it, in my opinion, where the prices are starting to, although they're still high, they are starting to sort of plateau and starting to come down because it's all the same these days. You know, the one-off jerseys. You know, if we were to do like a special one-off charity jersey or like them white retro ones last season, you know, they make a lot of money because they're completely different and there's only one of them. But the fact that, you know, there's so many of the home and away shirts that the players wear throughout the season and they give some to the sponsors and they raffle some off and they auction some off, that all of a sudden there's about 4 or 5 different game-worn shirts. For the same season shirts, and like you say, it sort of loses its appeal of paying lots of money for one, knowing that there's nothing really unique about it.
Just to prove that we are live, we've had something in from Clantastic, who isn't listening because he's actually in Braehead watching Braehead against Edinburgh. He just asked, "What the hell am I watching?" Hashtag asking for a friend. If you didn't know, Braehead were 2-0 up, and currently the Edinburgh Capitals lead 3-2 in a Challenge Cup game. Not a good time at the moment for the Braehead clan. However, if like Clantastic, you would like to get in touch with us at CastWhiskers use the hashtag AskTCW. Moving on to our next question. This is quite a meaty one. It comes from Karen Locke. She posted it on Facebook. Do you think it's time that shared interests ended? Tony Smith, chairman of the league, also owner of the Steelers. Paul Thompson, part owner of the Blaze and also coach of Sheffield. And Neil Black owning 2 clubs. Now, I've got to admit, I'm not so sure about the Paul Thompson one anymore. I don't think he is a part owner of the Blaze anymore, but I stand to be corrected on that one. But Andy, your thoughts on that question?
Do I think it's time that it ended? Yes, I think it should never have been entertained personally, but for the running of the league and for the good of the league, it kind of had to, because there's not enough interest from the outside world, as it were. It does seem a very closed shop. It does seem very internal in its affairs. And so at the time, it was kind of what needed to be done with regards, you know, Braehead being formed by Neil Black, and obviously there was the whole, at the time, I think, was Paul Thompson involved in Hull as well?
The Blaze were involved in Hull.
Right.
Whether Thompson was personally, I don't know.
Obviously, you've got the Blaze and Hull then. Obviously, you know, Tony Smith and Sheffield and the league. You know,
Paul Reagan.
Yeah, Paul Reagan. Forgotten all about him.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah. And you know, it's not great for the league, but at the same time, if they're not doing those sort of things, who else will? And that's the issue we've got. We need to attract outside, you know, people to do those kind of jobs, so that the internal guys don't have to. You know, it is when you know, if you talk to someone that doesn't follow it and you explain that, you know, our owner owns another team as well, and the Sheffield owner is the chairman of the league and stuff like that, you know, you get a lot of strange looks and, you know, questions about, are you sure this is professional at all, and that sort of thing. And it doesn't look good, but unfortunately I don't think it's going anywhere soon, because ultimately there is, you know, very little interest in this small sport of ours in this country.
And
yeah, I think for the league to progress, I think we have to move away from it. Unfortunately, there aren't people knocking on the doors to come and invest into British ice hockey at the moment. But I think we'll probably talk about this more again a little later with a different question to do with the governing body plans.
Yes.
But I think that's where the Elite League has to start there. But yeah, we'll move on to that shortly.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, we'll move on to that one now.
Perfect.
As it follows on perfectly. Nice link. So this one comes from Anthony Russell on Twitter, who of course hosts the Banners on the Wall podcast, so give that a listen if you get a chance. He says, for it to work, how vital is it for the Elite League to cooperate with Richard Graveson's plans for a new governing body? For those that don't know, Richard Graveson is the chairman of Ice Hockey UK, who said recently in a statement that a overall governing body for UK ice hockey is closer than it ever was before. So Ant, why don't you carry on?
Okay, yeah, well, like I say, I think the Elite League has to buy in 100% to this. I think, they need to shelve the egos. I mean, we hear a lot about, clashes, and that the Elite League, like we talked about Panthers earlier, they're very much of a closed shop. They have to share best practices with each other, get involved in player development. The Elite League is the top league in the UK. The Elite League should be driving this. They should be, wanting this to come up, because with the other leagues involved, there's your steady stream of British talent coming to the top. Easy answer for me.
Andy?
I think they should. I agree. They definitely should buy in, but unfortunately, there's part of me that will believe it when I see it. If you know what I mean. I'm sure there's a lot of talk going on between all the parties involved, and I'm sure it is closer than it ever has been before. But it's a very strange community we have in the hockey community. It's like we've said, it's a bit of a boys' club, and your face has to fit, and obviously with all the things we've just talked about with regarding owners and coaches and things like that, it would be lovely to have one overall governing body. But can I realistically see the Elite League owners who run the Elite League relinquishing power and finance and things like that to something where they're not going to have much, if any, input in? And I'm not sure I can see it at this moment in time. Sure, down the line, possibly, but currently at the moment, I think there's too much that the Elite League teams would lose that I don't think they're willing to give up yet.
Yeah. I think for me, the most important thing is an independent governing body covering all of UK hockey. I don't think it's as close as what Richard Graveson thinks. I mean, obviously, he's obviously going to be far closer to it than I am, so maybe there's something in it. But I think an independent governing body is essential to continue the growth of the sport going forward and take it out of, as you've said, this sort of boys' club where it tends to be more for self-interest rather than the interest of the sport. Okay, we will move on to another question. Ant, why don't you ask your other question?
I'll go on then. Easy answer. How many points do you think we'll need to qualify for the quarter-final of the Challenge Cup? Would just winning our home games be enough?
I think winning 4 games would be enough, so 8 points. So a .500 record. It doesn't matter whether they come home or away, but I think 8 points. Because Manchester look an awful lot stronger this year, so I think it's going to be very, very close to see as to who misses out in our group. So, 8 points for me.
To be fair, there was a time where winning 4 games, you'd won the trophy. Because you could draw games and
True.
and things like that. If you win your home games, you're through. There's no doubt about that in my mind. It would be crazy to think that if you got 8 points out of 16, it wasn't enough to have 4 teams go through out of 5. If you win your home games, you're through.
Okay. And your thoughts very quickly?
I want 16 every time I go into the Challenge Cup, but what do I know? No, I think I agree with you. I think 8 should be enough, but we'll just have to hope. If we lose on Saturday, I think we're in for a bit of a struggle, to be honest. Okay.
Another question that's come through on Twitter using hashtag AskTCW at CatsWhiskers comes from Jordan Gook. He says, which Panthers player are you most impressed with so far. So, Andy.
So far, probably Lindhagen, because I kind of feel like he's going to be this year's Macmillan. He'll go relatively unnoticed for half a season, and then people will start to appreciate quite what he does for the team. He's not flashy. He's not, so far he doesn't look like he's, ridiculously skillful, or he's a fantastic sniper, or he's going to get like 90 points, but he just gets on with it. He just does his job. He's very good skater. He looks responsibly sound at both ends of the ice. And yeah, I'm really impressed with him so far.
Okay, Ant?
Brian McGrattan. Oh no, he's not played yet, has he? I'm just looking, rose tinted glasses and what have you. Does it have to be one of the newbies?
No.
Weekman. The guy's awesome. And I've always thought that Jeff Dimmon's vital to our D unit, to be fair. Quality at the back. But yeah, Lindhagen, for me, out of the new boys, is the one that stood out.
Yeah,
I think Farmer deserves a mention as well. He's been very good. And he looks... I thought on Saturday he looked a lot quicker than he ever was last year.
Yeah, I think Farmer has been very good. I think Lakovic has improved. Steve Lee's improved. But I have to go with you two. I think Lindhagen's been excellent. He just looks to be an absolute gem of a signing. Can play both ends of the ice, and he's been picking up points and assists as well. But I have to agree with you also, and I think Mika Vikman has been outstanding, and a goals against average of 0.6 and a save percentage of 97.6 just tells its own story, and I hope that his form will continue in that vein for the rest of the season. Okay, a couple of questions left. This one comes from Helen Wright, and she says, how do you think we could improve the players' entrance? She says she loves the way the Clan use mobile phones to light up the arena. Now, I believe that is something that we are doing on Saturday, are we not?
Sheffield do that anyway, as well.
Yeah, Sheffield's been doing that for a while. So, Ant, do you think that will help improve it?
Yeah, it can't help. It can't hurt. I mean, I've always... wanted, if you like, the intro to the game to start a little bit earlier. Say if you start cranking up the music at, say, 10 minutes before face-off, make it imperative for people to start getting into the seats at that point, maybe use the video screen to play highlights and what have you. I think there's more that can be done. And to be honest, I know it got a lot of grief at the time, but I kind of get a kick out of Coventry's inflatable thing. I know it's a bit cheesy, but I do like it.
It's awesome.
Andy? So you like awesome inflatable things?
Yeah, more inflatables, more smoke, lasers.
Fireworks.
It's a knockout.
Pyro, a bit of pyro. Everyone loves a bit of pyro. No, I mean, ultimately, on a personal level, louder music, heavier music, lots of clips of people being put through the boards and that sort of thing.
Bruce Richardson getting put through the plexi.
Yeah, lots of big goals. I didn't see it properly, but I was surprised at what I did see with regards highlights on the board for last week's intro, and I appreciate that they said it wasn't quite finished. I didn't notice that Moses' goal from the Challenge Cup was on it. And I might be wrong, I might have missed it. But I was really surprised because I thought of all the goals last season, that was sort of the definitive goal for our season last year. I thought it was the big, it won us the Challenge Cup and the celebration was really good afterwards because you saw the delight from him and Wheatman. Just more of that. Just more sort of, thumping hits, a couple of big fights, maybe Jason Hewitt bleeding off the ice, and things like that. That's and big goals and trophies being lifted and loud music. That's what we want.
I think Paws could get involved a lot more as well, to be honest. I think we miss a massive trick with our mascot in that he comes out, does a little dance, walks off again, and then you see him a couple of times around the arena during the game. But I think they could do a hell of a lot more with him, to be honest.
Okay, Fair enough. Right, on to our final question, and that comes from Hayley, who is a Cardiff Devils fan. And she says, do you rely too much on Mika Vietman at the back? Shutting out Cardiff on Saturday, then letting 7 with Henry Passel in on Sunday. If so, is it wise? And
well, every team's going to have to rely on the netminder at some times. I don't think Saturday was... hopefully it's not going to be an example of what our season's going to be going forward. My only concern, really for Saturday, it's the defence for me played really well. They didn't give Cardiff any real decent chances. My only concern is that when that was working great on Saturday, but if it goes against them, what sort of character does the team have? To concede the goals in bunches that we did on Sunday was hugely disappointing as a Panthers fan. You at one point I was screaming at Twitter with, time out, Corey, come on. But I don't know. I think it's too early. Again, it's too early in the season to give a fair answer on this, I think.
Okay. Andy?
No, because I think ultimately, realistically, 29 shots I don't think is overly, like a particularly large amount of shots to concede. Don't get me wrong, it'd be nice if you could reduce it, by so many. But realistically, you've got to think that most nights you're going to concede high 20s, low 30s. And so I don't. And to touch on what Ant said, I thought defensively we were incredibly sound against Cardiff, and a lot of the shots that Wheatman saved, in hindsight, probably weren't overly troublesome for him. So yes, we will rely on him, but that's, in my opinion, it's kind of what comes with the territory of being a netminder, is that at times you're going to be relied on heavily against teams and in games, and I don't think we did on Saturday. And I think obviously when you change a goalie, it's you do play differently, whether that's rightly or wrongly. And obviously if we are going to play Packle a bit, then we need to learn how to defend with him in goal, because obviously shipping in 7 against Sheffield away from home with him in goal isn't going to be good enough, throughout the year.
Okay. All right, well, that brings us to an end of this week's Ask TCW podcast. Many, many thanks to you for sending your questions in. If you would like to send questions in for next week's show, you can do via Twitter at CastWhiskersTV. Use the hashtag AskTCW, and then also on Facebook we've got our own Facebook page, our dedicated thread on the Cage Forum, or you can email us at tcwonlinetv@gmail.com. Andy, thank you very much once again.
No worries at all, anytime.
And Ant, many thanks for stepping in and guesting for us this week.
Not a problem. For those that aren't following Panthers Hockey Live, do so.
Yes, at MP Hockey Live. Coverage this weekend?
To be confirmed on Sunday.
Okay, but definitely on Saturday.
Yeah, they'll be there on Saturday.
Okay, I've heard it's gone downhill this year. Is there any truth in that, Ant?
It's too early to tell. We're too early into the season.
For those wondering what is going off there, Andy, of course, used to be on MP Hockey Live and decided to give it up for this season because more important things happening in your life, isn't there, mate?
I want to watch my hockey a bit more.
Yeah, there you go. But do follow at MP Hockey Live on Twitter, and it's a great service and invaluable for those who can't make the game. So thank you to you guys. Thank you very much for listening. We will be back next week at 8:45, and also we will have our weekend preview podcast tomorrow night at 8:45. So until then, ta-ra.
She got